After inviting this beautiful woman to come and speak at my most recent mastermind event, I had to ask her to come and be a guest on the podcast because there was absolute gold that happened in that room that day. And I'm so blessed to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today, Lauren.
Thank you, Christine. It's awesome to be here. And you're right, I've still got goosebumps from that day. Some of those light bulb moments and the transformation I saw in people's confidence was
Yeah.
just phenomenal.
100%. So I feel like there's so many things we want to dive into today, but just to get started, so everyone knows a little bit about you and the Audacious Agency, can you give us a bit of a breakdown of how you work with entrepreneurs and change makers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Audacious Agency is a premier award-winning and profile building specialist. So we work more primarily with professional service providers, people who really need to stand out from the competition. So they tend to be in the financial industry, accounting, real estate, mortgage broking. They're also in the health and wellness space. They're coaches, they're authors, they're speakers. They're people who have to create a personal brand and a profile, and they want that level of credibility and visibility so that they can get picked and be noticed and get seen and really attract the right sort of people to their business. And that includes not just clients, but also joint venture partnerships, sponsorships, investments, everything else. It's building you up as the thought leader or the change maker.
Yeah. And so freaking important right now because 2024 has been such a massive year for businesses and small business owners. And the market is becoming so much more crowded that if you're not standing out, if you're not communicating a level of certainty through your profile, then you are getting lost in the crowd. And I was actually speaking to this earlier on in a masterclass I was running because so much of the time is that we're so focused on just doing our thing that you're not actually really considering, well, hang on a minute, how am I showing the people that I really want to work with that I am, one, going to absolutely deliver on what I promise and that I'm worthy of working with, right? And I think that what I love about what you do is this profile building that builds credibility, builds absolute credibility, and that's what makes people stand out and work with you. So can you talk to us with regards to awards? I know that you love speaking about awards as a big profile builder. And this is what you came and spoke to my beautiful ladies about. So, what is it about awards? Why do you love helping people with awards?
Well, I never used to always love awards. It's an interesting story. So when I worked at Saatchi in Wellington, back before computers were a big thing. I mean, there were a few computers around the office, but mostly stuff was still hand drawn and all the rest of it in those days, right? There were computers in the graphic design area, but all the creativity was done freelance. Basically, it was like everybody coming in and throwing amazing ideas together. They were at the top, probably one of the top 10 advertising agencies in the world. This is the time when the bugger ad was made. You know, remember the bugger ad for Toyota? All those really awesome big ads and those big
Yeah.
blockbuster ads that were made in those days. They were made around that time when I was there. And Kevin Roberts was running the show. He went on to write Love Marks and work in New York for Saatchi's and so on. And they had a little room in the agency. It was on the third floor behind reception, and it was called the Creative Lounge. Although I don't know whether I really ever saw many creatives in there. Most of the time they were either in the pub or in the bar. But anyway, it was called the Creative Lounge, and it had a couple of comfortable sort of lounge sort of chairs and this amazing kidney-shaped coffee table that had power inlaid, and it was all lacquered and everything. It was a beautiful table. And it was a place where you could go and have these little meetings and the creatives could hang out. And I used to go in there for a bit of quiet time, but also when I was briefing a creative and their office was busy. So we'd go in there and we'd meet. And around the office were these big trash cans, like the Oscar the Grouch from Sesame Street trash cans, yeah? Absolutely full of all these trophies, these cans, lines, and pencils, and just all these trophies all spilling out of these big buckets. And on the wall, there were so many of these certificates on the wall, framed, that there was no more room to put any more. They were right up against each other all the way around. So they'd installed these spikes on the walls, and they were impaling the
Oh my
certificate
God.
onto the spikes because they just had no more room for the awards. Right. So I thought at the time awards were just a big ego trip. You know, they're just a bit too much, a bit over the top. Until we won an award that was an effectiveness award. And one of the departments I worked with was the direct marketing side of things. And they had an entry for a telecommunications award for effectiveness of the marketing, and it won. And it was all based on the data on how effective the advertising campaign was. So it wasn't a big popularity contest or a massive big, whoa, we've been really creative, which is fabulous. It had actual data behind why they won. And that piqued my interest that maybe there was a place for us to say, well, hey, not only have we won all of these awards for our creativity, but all the money that our clients are spending with us to create this advertising is actually worth something, and it's getting these results. So years later, I was encouraged to enter the Stevie Awards for business. It was the Asia Pacific Stevie Awards for my approach to personal branding. Now, this is something that I created out of nothing. I created out of my experience, out of my knowledge of working in the advertising industry, out of my knowledge of branding and neuro branding. And I created an entire process. And I submitted that for the Asia Pacific Stevie Awards, and I won a silver Stevie Award. And that blew me away because I was up against some pretty big agencies. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay, that thing that I've created from nothing is valuable. It's worth something. And then I read the judges' entries and their response to my entry and their feedback and their comments. And they were saying things like, this is amazing. You're making accessible stuff that normally people wouldn't be able to afford. Normally you'd have to go to a big advertising agency to get this. It's an amazing process. It's getting results. And that just gave me the confidence as a brand new business consultant here in Australia to keep going and to keep building my brand and to keep building my product. So I guess the things I got out of it and the reason why I now love awards is, number one, the personal development that you see with people. Number two is the confidence that you get. I mean, anytime you're having a down day, you just need to look at your awards and go, they're very tangible. They're a tangible, real, evidence that you're doing something extraordinary. And fear really is just false expectation appearing real. So to have this tangible award or a certificate or a finalist trophy or whatever it is, that's something that you can look at and go, you know what, I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I'm actually quite good at this. And it keeps building that confidence. So yeah, the amazing personal development we've seen with the people that we help, as well as our own, has been amazing.
And so would you say that starts right from the beginning of the application, like taking the time, like the level of reflection and like going back into all of your data and everything that you've created in the journey of your business? Like, we don't often do that enough. Like, we don't take the time to celebrate ourselves. We don't take the time to reflect. Like, do you feel like that really fed into like, oh, look at it, I have actually done? Because it's so easy just to keep going and doing the next thing and forgetting to look back.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wrote about it in a LinkedIn article the other day. I'm calling it the progress paradox. So it's that big, you've got to hustle, you've got to get out there, you've got to take action, you don't wait, don't miss an opportunity. There's all that sort of pressure on us as business owners. And at the same time, you've got people saying, oh, look, take a break, sit back, relax, reflect on what you've achieved. And it's like this whole push-pull going on the whole time. And I agree with you. The comments that we get, and we overlook it all the time because it's just part of our process, but the comments we get from people, oh my goodness, I just spent 3 hours going back through what I've achieved this year, and I'd forgotten half of that stuff. And now that I look at it, oh my goodness, look at what I've done. I'm so impressed with myself, and quite often we would send an entry off to a client for them to approve, and they'd send it back going, I think you've got the wrong person. I think you've sent this to the wrong person. And it's like, no, this is what you told us that you'd done. We've just written it nicely. And they went, I sound amazing. And it's amazing, So yeah, I do think we underestimate ourselves a lot, and especially women in business. You're right, Christine. We are constantly on the now and the next thing. We just don't stop to look at what we've achieved. And it's so important for our mindset.
And we can get so caught up in comparison as well. Like, nothing ever feels good enough. Like, it's because the goalposts are always moving. Like, they're always moving, and we can never feel like we're keeping up and things are good enough as such. Like, I even asked that recently in a poll I put out of like, what's stopping you from actually doing these things or charging what you're worth and going after this level of success. And it's like, I don't think I'm good enough. And I'm like, good enough? Like, enough is not even a thing. Like, you can't even measure enough. Right. So it's one of those things. I think you're so right. And women have that whole other level of that self-doubt that goes with it. So I'd love to hear your take on this, because like, do you feel like one of the biggest hurdles for you to get people to even consider applying for awards is that block? Like, they actually don't even think they have something to like put themselves forward for?
Oh, absolutely. That awful comparisonitis that creeps in, and it's so weird. It's getting worse, I think, because of social media, and people just post this perfect life on social media. And that's what we think everybody else is experiencing. And it's just not true. And I also think that and the fact that we don't do that reflection enough on what we've achieved. We were too busy focusing on the stresses and the worries of today and not being grateful for what we've achieved and looking at the accomplishments that we have anyway. But yes, I think the real issue is that we are always looking for perfection. And
Yeah.
until it's perfect, we're not prepared to push ourselves into a place of discomfort. And the funny thing is, the word perfect can be said two ways: perfect as in absolutely whole, no flaws, or perfect, which is I'm just learning and I'm developing and I'm growing at the same time. It's the same word.
Yeah.
It can mean both things. So I think a lot of the times people assume that if you're going to enter awards, A, you have to have big wins, B, you have to show all your financials. C, you have to have big clients and well-known brand names that you're working with. You have to make this an impossible, impact on the judges. And none of those assumptions are correct. There's a lot of awards out there that don't need financials. They don't even ask you for that information. There's so many awards out there that aren't just looking for the big businesses. There are small business and micro business and startup and solopreneur and maverick of the year. There's all these categories out there for one-man bands, as well as growing businesses or businesses at all levels and stages. There's industry awards. They're specific for real estate or accounting or law. There's also industry awards based on, like, the Australian Small Business Champion Awards. Their categories are basically industries. So you
Yeah.
go for the beauty salon or the plumber, or you go for the industry based on what you're entering for you. So yeah, you have to tell a story in your entries. The judges don't expect that it's been all unicorns and rainbows. They know they are small business owners, or they've worked in a corporate role, or they've been in business themselves. They know that it's like this. It's like a roller coaster. So yeah, it's really important for people not to think, oh, I didn't have such a flash year this year, I'll wait till next year. No, it's an ideal time for you to talk about the challenges that you've had and how you're adapting and what your plans are for the future and how you pivoted and what you're doing to shore up your business. It's really important that you look at the whole aspect. And the one thing I would encourage everyone to do, there's one thing that a lot of people don't do, that it really is going to help you with your award entries: case studies and testimonials. If you're not already gathering from your clients and your customers reviews, Google reviews, testimonials, and creating case studies, like, ask three simple questions. What was life like before you worked with me? What was the number one thing you got out of working with me? And what would you tell somebody if they were thinking of working with me? Those three questions are enough to create an awesome case study that you can then put into your entry to say, look, we haven't had this massive year this year. We didn't put on 100 new clients. We didn't grow our team by 50%, but this is what we did. We had these impacts, and this is the outcomes we've had for our clients and our customers. That's more than enough to get yourself through to finalist.
Yeah, wow. Love that. I love that you shared that. And I feel like my biggest takeaway of seeing you speak for my beautiful mastermind group was to actually share the challenge along the way as well as the wins. Because I think that when you have the perspective of, like, oh, I'm going to apply for a award, I've got to tell them all the best parts. I've got to tell them why I'm so amazing. And I feel like for Australians, and if that's the same for New Zealanders, like, it's really feels really hard for us to boast about ourselves. And I loved how you shared that. It's like, well, actually share the challenge, or share how, where you came from and where you've gotten to now. And when I thought about applying for awards, like, it just never ever came to my mind that you would share both sides. I don't know
Yeah.
why, it just never came to mind, but I just loved how you shared, like, it's telling the story for the judges.
It's funny, isn't it? It's almost a self-perpetuating prophecy, isn't it? That you don't think you've done enough, therefore I won't enter awards, therefore I won't do enough because I haven't entered awards. It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous. I remember when we arrived in New York last year for the Stevie Awards for Women in Business. It was the weekend of the New York Marathon. And we used trains because it was busy and couldn't get into town and so on. And as we got off the subway, all these people were there with these medals around their necks. They'd run the marathon, and they had them not only around their necks, and they'd run them in the morning and the afternoon. They were on the outside of their jackets, and they still had these medals on, and they still wore them. And there were still people in the streets wearing medals days later. They still were walking around with medals on. Now, that doesn't happen in Australia and New Zealand. People run a
Yeah.
marathon here. And I know my husband's run two of them. They get their medal and they get a couple of photographs. They take it off and stick it in their pocket, and no one ever sees it again.
Right?
And it's
Stuff.
so weird. So
It's
yeah, so I think
crazy.
there's a lot we have to learn in terms of celebrating our accomplishments, but also understanding that to run a marathon is not easy. That's hard. And lots of people go, I'm never doing this again. And then 2 weeks later, right, where's the next marathon? So it's the same in business. It's a huge effort. And there's these ups and downs the whole way. And you hit a wall and you get through it. And you're right. It's telling that story of your journey as a business owner and making sure that you're highlighting not just the wins, but how you won and how you pushed through and how you were resilient.
Yeah, so good. And I also took away this like uniqueness around awards. Like there's so many unique ways that you can go for certain awards. Like I just didn't even consider like that you could apply for a book or for a podcast, like for all these different places that or a concept. Like I love how you spoke about that of like you made everyone really think outside the box of like, well, actually, how could I do this, but also do it for my clients? So how do you see your clients utilizing their awards within their business?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I find that people, you're right, there's a number of people that we've helped win awards for concepts and for products that are not even produced. They've got like what do you call it, a prototype, but they've not actually produced them. So by the time they go to sell them, they've already won an award for them, which is just awesome. That's such a great way to launch a product. So yeah, there's lots of ways you can do that. But I think the number one thing we do with our clients is that we make sure that there are definite points of metrics in the entries. So even if we say, look, you don't have to have had a massive year, but you must have some sort of metrics, whether that's client testimonials and transformation, the impact you're having on your community, fundraising or community things that you've done. If you're going for an entrepreneur award, it needs to be about your business, but also about your impact as a leader and your community and how you're making an impact on a wider scale. So think about all the things that you're doing in your life, not just like maybe it could be as small as helping with the school fete or raising money for a local charity or a B1G1 as part of your business model. So yeah, make sure you've got those metrics in there because the storytelling is phenomenal, but it's the metrics that matter if you want to win. If you want to get through to be a finalist, you need to give people that evidence. And make sure that you are always putting in a support document, even if it says that it's not compulsory, it's compulsory. Make sure you're giving them some really good images, some tables, some graphics, some longer form case studies so that the judges can really get to know who you are and understand the process. Read the questions and make sure you're giving the judges what they want. They don't want waffle. They don't want verbose language. And I know you can use AI to help you create award entries, but please think of AI as having a little intern there next to you, not a tool. It'll just make you look like a tool if you go and ask AI to write it for you, because I've heard some really bad things about it, because your entry will look like everybody else's, basically. Yeah. So use AI to do the background stuff and start formulating, but you need to edit and write your entries and make them personable and get rid of that verbose language and make sure it's really clear. But the number one thing I see that people don't do is they don't leverage the awards. So what happens is they go to the awards, they take all that time and effort to do all their research, they write the entry, takes them weeks, whatever, they hit submit, and then they sit back and wait and they go, oh, well, that's not announced for a couple of months. I'll just cross my fingers and hope. And they wait until they're announced to do anything. And worse, if they're announced and they're not a finalist or they're not a winner, they go, oh, I'm not going to tell anyone.
Yeah.
So you've spent all that time and effort, you've gathered all that amazing content, and you've not done anything with it. Only you and the judges have seen it. And it's just such a waste. So what we do with our clients is the minute that we submit to an award, we are giving our clients social media content to say, hey, we're in it to win it. We might not win it, but we're really proud of our team. We're nominated. We're in, even if you've nominated yourself, you're going, we're in this thing. We're really proud of our accomplishments this year. We've had a tough year. It's been amazing how resilient our team is. But whatever, we're giving them content so that right from the minute of submission, they are starting to leverage the fact that they're awards. Now, the reason for that is it's branding by association. So as long as your logo and your brand is now associated with the Australian Small Business Champion Awards or the Telstra Awards or whatever it is, people are seeing you leveling up as being part of that. And I've got a very funny story to share with you about leveraging every aspect. So even if you go and you're don't say, oh, I'm just a finalist. Leverage the fact that you're a finalist. Go along to the awards gala dinner, get the photographs, pose with your team. Doesn't matter if you don't win. The lovely Matt Alderton, who runs the BX community, and he's got the BX Awards. I spoke with him at an event not that long ago in Sydney, and he shared with me the story that he had been a Subway franchise owner. And he posted once at a Subway conference a picture of him and his team, and he's all in his suit and everything else at the awards gala dinner in the evening. And he grabbed the centerpiece off the table, and it was just like candles and flowers and stuff. And he posed with it and got a photograph, and then they all laughed, and he put that on social media saying, really proud to be here as part of the Subway team, blah, 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 blah. Didn't say anything about winning, just said, awesome to be here. Within minutes, people were posting on his posts, congratulations, that's awesome, great to see you, thinking head, and he's just holding the centerpiece from the table. So, it's branding by association. People don't read, they don't look, they don't notice, but if they see you all the time, dressed up to the nines with your team, celebrating success, being, honest and open about the journey that you've had, it just levels your profile up. It's just that connection.
100% on so many levels, but it makes me laugh that people don't bloody read. Like, what the hell? But it's also like that level of credibility, because I think that, whether you are taking that time to actually share that, like, people want to work with people who are winning, right? It's just part of our human nature. We want to work with people who are winning. We're inspired by that. We're inspired by your courage to even just have the fear and do it anyway. Like, putting yourself out there, putting yourself forward for an award, whether you're nominating yourself or whether you've been nominated, but actually going in all in on it is courageous. Like, it takes courage to do that. It's you backing yourself and being like, I am believing in myself enough to put myself forward for this. And that's why I also think it's such a personal development journey, right? Like, it's taking it to a whole new level, but backing yourself every step of the way. But on the business side, it's so worthwhile, because people really look to that and they want to feel certain in their investments. And when they look to the level of credibility you've developed through awards, or even just your story of applying for awards and going for that and becoming finalist and nominated, like, people think that just because we're in the business space, I think I find this, and I'm sure I'd love to hear if you find this too, that because we're in the business space, we see that happening and we think that everyone's doing it. It's actually not the case. It's a very small percentage of people that take the time and effort to apply for awards, right? And to actually then go and win them. And for it to then impact our customers on a whole other level, like, customers are going to make a quicker decision to buy from you or to invest in you if they've seen that you've been recognized nationally or globally, right? It takes it to a whole new level.
Yeah, absolutely. That credibility factor is amazing. I think it's becoming there's more of a movement to enter awards, and I'm noticing with a lot of the awards programs that we work with that they are growing in numbers. So I was at the Sunshine Coast Small Business Awards event the other day. It wasn't the gala dinner, it was a pre-event thing with meeting the media and so on. And they said they had, I think, over 50% of the entrants were first timers, so people who'd never entered the awards before, and they had about a 33% increase in entries this year. So more people are doing it. And I think it's because they're seeing the results from other people and they're going, I want that too. So 2 words of warning here. One is, make sure you check out the awards you're entering, that they're really credible awards. They're not ones that go, when you get an email that says, Christine, you're the #1 sales woman with blonde hair in Brisbane who does, do you know what I mean? And you've won. And by the way, it's $2,500 to collect your trophy. They're not real business awards. If you haven't actually entered, if you haven't submitted anything, they're not real awards. They're just vanity features, if you like. Yeah. So they're okay. They're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just people know that you've basically paid to play. Awards that you have to write an entry for or be nominated for or put in some sort of time and investment into entering, really good ones, which I love, which are ones where you're entering a submission and you're also doing an interview, so that the judges are not only seeing what you look like on paper, but they're seeing you as a person, and they're seeing how passionate you are about your business, and they're asking you some pretty in-depth questions to check if you know your stuff. They've got great integrity. So that's like Sunshine Coast Business Awards. It's like the Telstra Awards. They all have those sorts of levels. So yeah, check out the awards themselves for their integrity before you enter. But yeah, the more important thing I see is it's not just about entering, it's about showing up. Yeah. So when I went to the Sunshine Coast Business Awards the other day, there was a room of probably 120 people there. It was the connections with other business owners. It was the fact I got a selfie with the Lord Mayor. It was, all this other stuff that I could leverage, that I'm now surrounding myself with other winners. And it is a mindset thing, it's a personal development thing, but it's also, as you say, Christine, it's all about perception. It's about people seeing you as someone worth talking to. And if they're looking, especially if you're a speaker or an author or a thought leader and a leader in your business and you just want to grow your brand, when you've got two different opportunities as a customer and you're looking at the competition, and one of them has won awards or they've got lots of social media surrounded by people like the Lord Mayor and so on, it's like, wow, they are moving in the right circles. There's somebody I want to work with. They've got a bit more credibility, and use that. The other thing is using the awards logos on your website, on your email footer, and on your shopping cart. So if you've got an
Oh,
e-commerce business, you know how you get a lot of cart abandonment? People go, oh, I'm not sure. Having client testimonials, customer reviews and things, and also awards on your shopping cart improves the checkout rate. So
yeah.
it's just like to say, it's that extra little level of credibility that they can trust.
Yeah. And also I love like you speak about like how to leverage it for a long term. Like if you even if you won the award last year, like I spoke to someone when one of the girls at the event and I was like, oh, I won I was like finalist for coach of the year. And I think I put it in an email once. Like and straight after that day I put it on my profile on my Instagram because I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So like I love how you also share like continue to use it, right? Like leverage it in so many ways.
Yeah, Stephen Bradbury. I mean, he won his Olympic medal for not falling over back, well, 20 something years ago, and he's still talking about it. He's grown a whole brand around that. So absolutely. We find about 80% of people do virtually next to nothing with their awards. And even if you don't win, it doesn't matter. You can absolutely leverage it. One of our clients the other day, we entered them in an award, which I knew they wouldn't win. And you go, well, why would you enter them in it? Well, because I'm associating their brand now with some global brands. Even if he didn't win, he's now
Yeah.
associated with them. So he can now talk about in a blog or a newsletter or a bit of social media, look, we didn't get through, but I'm so impressed that we were up there with these guys. And that just levels up their brand again.
Mm.
So especially if you're in a highly competitive marketplace where often it's a race to the bottom to compete on price, the minute you've got that association with awards and that bit of branding, it just levels you up. And that people go, well, I don't mind paying a premium because I know I'm going to get a good quality product.
Yeah. Which also goes to show like as well, like I look at like there are some that are pay to play, which makes sense for some of the awards. And so I know that there's been a lot of like negative stuff being talked about the fact that like, oh, you've got to pay to be like you can be nominated, but then you've got to pay to actually apply. But what's your take on that? Because my take on that is like, well, it's a marketing expense. How do you look at it?
Yeah, we always, the whole thing should be a marketing expense. In our strategic plans that we create for people, we put on there, here's the dates they open, here's the entry fees, and here's the other stuff. Like if you're going to fly down to Sydney to attend and so on, you're going to need to allow X amount of dollars and so on. So we make sure that they're aware of all of those costs up front and they can build it into their marketing. Now, when you enter an award, you are going to pay, whether that's your time, an investment to enter and write your entry, whether that's the entry fees might be free, but you're still going to have to travel to get to the gala dinner and dress up and stay somewhere. And some awards will then charge you. So, for example, the Small Business Awards, Small Business Champion Awards in Australia, there's no fee to enter the awards, but there's a ticket fee to attend the gala dinner. You get your trophy included in that if you win, but you then have to pay, I think it's another $270, $300 for the photography and the videos.
Yeah.
So
Right.
always going to be a little bit of something in there, right? Now, I can't see why it's wrong for awards to charge for entry when they've got to manage hundreds of thousands of people coming every year. I mean, the Stevie Awards run, I think it's 7 or 8 platforms now every year. And they have hundreds of categories for each one of those. They've got judges, they've got judging chairs, they've got judging panels, they've got operating expenses, they've got the trophies included in that. They also give you, and part of that, Facebook leverage, Instagram leverage. They put you out to their newsletter database. You join their LinkedIn alumni. There's all this amazing leverage that you can get. And you're also associated with like the Oscars of business. So there's always a cost. It'll either be in money or in time for you to do this. But as you say, Christine, it is all relative based on what you're trying to achieve with your marketing and with the growing of your profile and what you want to be known as.
Okay, so if someone's listening and they're like, okay, Lauren, you're onto it. I need to start like doing awards. I have two questions. One, Is there a right or a wrong time to apply for awards in the stage of business? Because we are speaking to business owners. So is there a certain time where you should really stop and consider this is the perfect time to do awards? And secondly, where do we start?
Okay, so perfect timing. There, again, it comes back to what your goal is. There are definitely awards out there that have categories for startup. If you're an author, most of the book awards are for new books. So anywhere, if you've written a book, anywhere between sort of 12 to 24 months, if you've got a published date in that time, then you'll be up for those. There are awards for legacy books, but you're sort of bundled in with everybody. So there are some definite ideal times for authors, or if you're launching something. If you're an established business, an ideal time would be when you are at a point where you know you've got competition and you know you're the world's best kept secret and you've got innovative approaches and you're getting amazing results for your clients, but you're not getting any traction with your marketing. Now, there's a reason that's happening at the moment. One, as you said, there's so much content out there. And number two, just the media don't care. They really, unless you are Taylor Swift or you've got a Dorito shaped like Jesus or a different way of making yourself famous on OnlyFans, they just don't care. So, it's really sad, and they say they do care, but really they're not giving, I don't think they're giving Australian small businesses enough space. I think it's too much international news and too much celebrity news and clickbait. And the reason for that is that it's all their advertising is all funded on clicks. So we have to stand out as businesses and make sure that that happens. And leveraging the awards is a great way to do that. So there is no real right time. I think it's more importantly that you take the time to say, where am I going with this? What do I want my business to be known for? Do I want myself to be set up for sale? Am I looking for joint venture partnerships? Do I need more clients? Do I need better clients than what I've currently got? So once I've planned that out, it's like, how are we going to do this? What's our marketing strategy going to be? And that's when you say, well, part of this has got to be awards. Because awards, as you've quite rightly pointed out, Christine, not only is the fact that you're entering awards and you're being associated with them and so on, but it's the process that you can then use all of that amazing content to create blogs and ebooks and newsletters and social media and repurpose it across, I don't know how many different platforms. You can use your process of entering awards to create business plans and strategy documents and training manuals for your staff. It's like everything is all in there in the process. So that's a great time to start, is when you're ready to go, hey, we need to be doing something bigger than what we've currently been doing, and we deserve to be seen. Or if you've got team members, doing amazing things, and incredible stories coming back, and you just want to get some eyeballs on those stories, it's a great way to do that. So, and where to start? Google is your friend. Just start Googling what awards are around for my industry. So type in your industry and then awards, small business awards, Australia. Start with local awards if you want to dip your toe in the water. Although I would tell you this, I think winning a local award is actually harder than winning an international award.
Wow.
So, because locally people know you and there's a little bit of unconscious bias that goes on. Whereas internationally, you tend to have a panel of international judges who don't know you from Adam, and they're looking at your entry to judge you. So that's my thoughts on that anyway. So but start Googling what awards are out there, and then open up a file on your computer, open up a folder and start throwing stuff in there. Start throwing in case studies, photographs, testimonials. Go back through your diary and work out, when did I speak at events? When did I make a community impact? How much money did we donate to that charity? What was our turnover last year? Go and grab all that information and start collating it and putting it together.
And then if all of that seems super overwhelming in the thought of like working out your actual entry, how do we get in contact with you and how can you help us?
I could do that on a weekend. No, I understand. I totally get it. And that's why we're here. The Audacious Agency absolutely is here for people who just go, can you just do it for me? Because that's exactly what we do. The whole thing is done for you. We do caveat to that. In the first month, there's a lot of interaction with you. We do a full-on interview. We start off with a strategy session, and then we do an interview, and then we gather everything from you. But after that first month is over, we then can repurpose a lot of the work, and we're just contacting you to go, hey, we're entering an award this month, and it needs this specific data. And the nicest thing is, as it rolls, as that snowball grows, you're then leveraging your process as well, and the fact you're now a nominee and a finalist and a winner and so on. So it's cool.
Love it.
Yeah, the Audacious Agency, you can reach out to us online. We're all over LinkedIn and Facebook. So yeah, search for me or the Audacious Agency and we'll come up in your feed.
Amazing. I'll make sure I put all the links in the show notes so it's super easy for people to find you. Because I feel like the reason why I'm asking is because I find like the thought of writing it, I suck at it. Like I suck at the writing piece. And like I highlighted, like I wouldn't have thought, I think that's the thing is like when you hire an expert in the field, they're going to think about things in a completely different way. And they've done it so many times to know exactly what needs to be entered. Whereas sometimes as you're trying to do it yourself, you just don't know what is needed to be included. So having that guidance would be really worthwhile.
Yeah, we're in a very luxurious position where it's like a helicopter view on
Yeah.
what you're. We've got no emotional attachment to it, although we do get quite emotionally attached to our clients. But also, you're right. It's not just knowing what to put in your entry, but it's knowing what to leave out.
Yes.
So that's really and when you've got an entry where you've got 300 words to try and talk about your business, it's
That's
like
hard.
stuck with that.
Goodness. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast with me today and sharing all of your beautiful wisdom. It's been such a joy chatting with you.
You're very welcome. And I just want to make sure that your listeners know that they have the most amazing gifts and talents that the world needs. And you do deserve to be well known, well paid, and wanted. So get out there, be bold, brave, and audacious.
Love it. Thanks, Lauren.